Welcome to Solo, the single person's guide to a remarkable life. Your host, a behavioral scientist and bachelor, talks to leading experts and successful singles about living solo and living well. Travel more, make things, sleep in when you want to. Here's the playbook for the person who is unapologetically unattached. Now, please welcome Dr. Peter McGraw.
I've used the term on the podcast before, people's burn rate. Essentially, what are your expenses like? I could speak to this as a behavioral scientist. And one of the big challenges is that what people tend to do is they tend to increase their consumption commensurate with their income.
Yeah, golden handcuff.
Yes. So you make more money, you buy a nicer car. You make more money, you buy a bigger place. You make more money, you buy nicer clothes. You make more money, you go on fancier vacations, and so on. The difficult thing about this is what's called the hedonic treadmill, is that yes, that nicer car, house, clothes, vacation does feel nicer at first, but unfortunately as humans we're really good at adapting to that new state of the world. Hence the treadmill, you're constantly moving forward, but not actually moving forward.
Right.
Welcome back. One of the arguments that I make is that being single provides optionality, which is defined as having the right but not obligation to take action. Basically, this is freedom. In this episode, I speak to the Thriftygal to examine how money can buy you freedom. Her particular focus is on ways to lower your expenses in order to gain financial freedom. Besides covering the benefits of having FU money and how to lower expenses, we talk about her admiration of Judge Judy, the questions she asked before making a material purchase, and our shared love of salads for breakfast. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Let's get started. Welcome to Solo, the single person's guide to a remarkable life. I'm Peter McGraw. Today's guest is Anita Dhake, aka the Thriftygal. Anita is the author of the Power of Thrift blog, where she journals her attempts at crossing off life's bucket list items. She checked off item number 7, retire early, at the age of 33, which allowed her to check item 16 off her list twice, be on TV once. Dhake graduated from the University of Chicago Law School in 2009 and quit lawyering in 2015. Congratulations on that.
Thanks.
She now travels and continues to cross off bucket list items, spreading the word of how remarkable life can be. You can find out more about her perspectives in her book, which is available on Amazon, Operation Enough, with an exclamation point, How to Retire Remarkably Early. Welcome, Anita.
Yeah, hi. There's that word again, huh? Remarkably.
Look, we've managed to say it 4 times already in the first minute and 10 seconds, so my listeners are used to it.
Yeah.
Do you have a particular affinity towards that word? I'm curious.
No, it sounded good, the alliteration. Remarkably retire.
And retire. Yeah, no, I love the word. I love the word because I like the term remark. It's something that people talk about, right?
Yeah.
It's that noticeable that they're willing to remark about it. So we're here to talk about the power of money. I found one of your blog posts, I can't remember how, I can't remember when, called The Power of Money. And it really resonated with me. But before we get into that, can you tell us a little bit more about how you got here besides this sparse bio?
Sure. So I started reading about early retirement when I was 17. I read Your Money, Your Life. And
who's the author of that book? Do you remember?
That's Joe Dominguez. Joe and Vicky Dominguez, I believe. And I put retire early on my life bucket list, and then I kind of forgot about it for a while. Went to law school, and I found out how much money I was making as a lawyer. And I read the book again, and I started working, and I started my own wall chart where I plotted my expenses and my projected passive income. 5 years later, I retired. So, yeah.
All right. So we're going to get into some of that, what you did to do that. So this chart shows up on your blog on occasion.
Yeah.
And so it has year on the x-axis, and then Y, it has some amount of money.
Right, exactly.
And then you have 2 lines on it, as you said, your expenses and your passive income. or
Correct.
your income, passive and active, right? And the goal is to cross those.
Right.
Yes.
Is to have the expenses line be below the passive income line, and then you're good to go. You don't have to work anymore.
And that was in 2015 for you.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Excellent. Congratulations.
Thank you.
You've done something that most people never really do.
Yeah.
You know, or at least till they die. And then, you know, they come together.
Yeah. I feel very lucky.
Yeah, that's great. And, you know, actually, I'm already making an observation because you were a little tough to wrangle for this podcast. I always feel I have mixed emotions about that. So just as an aside, I have a follow-up podcast. I can't promise it's going to happen because I'm working with someone else who's even more difficult to wrangle than you. I had to send him letters in order to get him to agree.
Wow.
But I think this
letter writing.
I sent him 2 letters, and he responded, thankfully. So, but I think there is something about probably that psychology that says, I'm gonna live life on my terms. I'm gonna do what I want to do as I want to do it. That can lead one to retire at the age of 33. So, and you are solo, yes?
Correct. Yes.
You are solo. Okay, and so. Let's talk a little bit about this particular blog post, as I said, called The Power of Money. And you make a case for how money equals freedom. Is that a fair way to say that?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. If you use it correctly, it's absolutely the way to go.
Yeah. Tell me more about, again, that the evolution of that idea. And what do you mean by freedom? Like, what kinds of freedoms does money provide for you?
So if I can
or for us solos.
Yeah. So I think for relationships, the number one thing is having your own money so that you can escape if you need to. Like, so you're not dependent on anybody or any one person. It's also freedom from a terrible job. But like, if you have FU money, excuse my language, you can quit a job where your boss is horrible. If you have a little bit of a nest egg, you can move if your neighbors are terrible, or there's so many things that money can buy you, but freedom is probably the most important.
Yeah, so let's go through these sort of one by one, if I may. So you say in the blog you use the term bad romantic entanglement.
Yeah.
And you use the word entanglement before it was a funny word, thanks to Will and Jaden Smith. And you tell a story about Judge Judy.
Okay, yeah, that sounds familiar. I talk about Judge Judy a lot. I think she's great. I think it's hilarious when she yells at people.
Yeah.
I don't remember the actual story, though.
Well, the story goes something... Actually, if it's okay, I'll read it. I'll read your words back to you. Okay. So you said, even Judge Judy knows this. She recounted this conversation with her first husband in her memoir. I said to Ron, who was in private practice and could set his own hours, I have to be in court tomorrow afternoon. You need to go to the swim meet. I assume this is because they had kids. He had a look of incredulity. That's not our deal. If you want to work, that's fine, but your job is a hobby. And then Judge Judy goes on and says, we were divorced within a year, and I vowed to never again let another person define me. By the way, I don't know Judge Judy's net worth, but I'm guessing it's somewhere between $20 and $50 million.
Yeah, I think it's definitely much higher than that.
Is that right?
Our house, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So upwards of $50 million. So Ron can take a walk.
Yeah.
So I do. I think that this is a really interesting idea. I've been doing some research on the rise of singles. So this is a phenomenon both in the United States and in many other places. And one of the drivers of this is economic freedom, especially women's economic freedom.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're not dependent on anybody, then you don't need to stay.
Yeah.
Things get miserable.
And even you don't even have to enter into a relationship unless you want to for other reasons, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, That's great. So then you said the other one is cushion from a hostile work environment. So you said a bad job.
Yeah, exactly.
And have you had some bad jobs?
Yeah, I've had some hard jobs, I'll say, stressful jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Ran away from.
And are these the lawyering ones, or are there others?
No, there were definitely others. I think that not so pleasant jobs. I did telemarketing before, and what else? Terrible jobs. Lawyering was also very hard, but I don't know if I'd call it a terrible job. Just very stressful, a lot of hours.
Yeah, and not getting to the place where lawyering could become engaging, probably as a young lawyer.
Yeah. It's a little in depth, I guess. A little bit kind of boring.
Mm-hmm. Was it not a good match for your sort of? It doesn't sound. I mean, to me, it doesn't seem like a good match with your personality.
I think if you're a hard worker, it can be a good match, and I'm definitely a hard worker. But the culture, the mentality of more money just didn't really appeal to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, clearly. Clearly. So I agree with you. I've had some really terrible jobs in as a young man. I was lucky to find academia, and it is hard work, but even when the work was really hard, it never felt too much like work, I would say.
Yeah, if you love your job, you'll never work a day in your life, right?
Yeah, I find as I've gotten older, I find that some of the elements of the job become less and less appealing, and thus the financial freedom of being able to walk away from it becomes increasingly valuable and interesting.
Right. Even if you don't walk away, you give you bargaining power to be like, I want to work from home, or I only want to teach one class, or whatever.
Yeah, especially if you're willing to negotiate and give up money.
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
is the possible thing. I have a story I'm saving. I'm working on a project related to solo, and I have a story in which I told my dean that I'm not interested in getting a raise. And I'll tell you this, Anita, it was exhilarating to say that, because it was such a powerful thing to say, because I felt like that gave me more freedom moving forward, because now there's not a kind of quid pro quo, some exchange that's going to happen,
absolutely.
where expectations go up along with the salary in that sense. You also say money is freedom from a negative living situation.
Yeah, so that's another Judge Judy thing that I think about all the time. And I watch that show all the time, and there's so many cases of like bad roommates or bad neighbors, and Judge Judy just likes to say, well, then move, So that's an easy solution if you have money, not so easy if you don't have money.
Yes, that's right. You live alone?
I do, yeah.
Yes, of course. Of course you live alone. I live alone also. I've lived alone most of my life.
Yeah, ditto.
And I like it. It agrees with me. And I had 2 years in graduate school where I took on roommates. And I did so not out of camaraderie, although I made the best of that.
Economic necessity.
It just the math worked way better. And so I moved to a part of town, and I moved in with roommates. And again, I made the best of it. I'm a social, extroverted guy, but as soon as I could kind of get on the other side of it, I did. And I appreciate that. I can imagine, though, having made that decision and it really backfiring.
Yeah.
Like really being stuck
Absolutely.
on a lease with with bad people, rather than just people who might not be as tidy. Almost no one's as tidy as I am. So I have to recognize that. We'll get to that in a moment. What's that?
I'm pretty tidy.
I know you are. We are going to talk about. I've gone down the Thriftygal rabbit hole, Anita. It's a really wonderful set of blogs, and and you're a very fun writer. I have to say, I do enjoy it. As someone who studies humor, I appreciate it. So the other one you have about the power of money and the freedom that it can buy is actually literal freedom.
Yeah, right? Your time.
Yes.
Which is exactly what I have. I wake up whenever I want. I go to bed whenever I want. I'm super flexible with my daytime hours. So if someone wanted to hang out during the day, I'm easily able to do that, or avoid traffic if I don't want to drive at certain points. So it's amazing what you can do when, your time is completely your own and you don't have to report to anybody.
Absolutely. I find it difficult to date someone on a Monday through Friday, 9 to 5.
Yeah.
For that very reason. Because now you're going to the airport when everybody else is going to the airport. And you're going out to dinner when everyone else is going out to dinner. Yeah, you're going
on vacation on weekends when everyone else is going on vacation.
Yes. And so I often run my errands on Wednesday, when everybody else is working. So one day a week, everybody's working. And it's the great day to do errands.
Yeah. I never go to the grocery store after 2 p.m.
Yes, I understand. Yeah. And so that, what's interesting about that is that's kind of addition by subtraction, right? You just make your life easier, more convenient, with regard to that. And then it is very nice that if you decide to stay up late one night, you can just sleep in the next day.
Right. Exactly. That's probably my favorite thing about my life.
Yeah. Are you a good sleeper?
I'm an excellent sleeper. Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful to hear.
Yeah.
And have you always been, or has that been a benefit of being retired?
No, I've always been a good sleeper. Okay, I've been able to sleep on a rock before, kind of thing. It's just when I'm tired, I go to bed and fall asleep pretty quickly.
I want to lean into this idea about how, money is fungible. That is, you can transfer it into other things. You can turn money into gold and gold into money and so on. But time isn't fungible.
Right. It's the only non-renewable resource that we have.
Yes.
Well, not the only one, but one of the most valuable ones.
Our most personal.
Yeah,
one.
There you go.
Yes, indeed. And so this idea, and I'm on the other side of 50 now, there is a phenomenon as people age where they start to recognize, I like to say, I'm stealing this from a Guy Ritchie movie called The Gentleman, where one of the characters, the Hugh Grant character, says, the sun's not rising for me, it's setting. And the recognition that, I'm going to live to 100. So,
I'm halfway there. Yeah.
I'm smack dab. And I know I'm going to live to 100. And Anita, you're probably going to live to at least 100, maybe 110. Because as we were warming up here, we both admitted that we had a salad for breakfast.
I eat a salad for breakfast almost every day.
Yeah. By the way, what a cheat code.
Yeah, I totally agree. You don't have to think about one meal, and you get vegetables and easy to prepare and something not to think about.
And it fills you up and it gets you to lunch, versus a lot of things that people do. So the last one is, I was alluding to it earlier, although you had a better answer to it, was that money can buy you justice.
Yeah.
So it can actually keep you free.
Absolutely.
As in keep you away from being in prison. Can you talk more about that? Yeah. So leave it to a lawyer to come up with the justice argument for the value of money. What lies behind that argument that money can buy you justice?
Well, just you'll have the best team fighting for you. For some reason, you do something untoward that you probably should not have done.
Well, I think all of us listening would be falsely charged.
Yeah.
I think that's really what it would
be.
But you don't have to take a plea.
Exactly. Fight to the end.
You can fight till the end. I mean, I think a lot of people don't understand this, that a lot of and I only know this from watching TV, so, forgive me, but the little I know is that essentially the way the justice system is designed to work is to win. And a win is to have someone admit to guilt.
Right. A prosecutor's not going to take the case to trial unless he's pretty sure they can win. But
the issue is they'll still try to win by getting a plea.
Right.
Even if they don't think they can win at trial.
Absolutely, yeah.
And so what happens is if you're willing to go to trial, you might be able to expose a weakness.
Yeah, this is what I learned from television as well, but I believe so.
Well, yeah. I mean, one of us has passed the bar.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about how. So, we talked about your chart. To me, there's two ways to go about making those two lines cross.
Yeah.
Right. And so talk me through your thinking on those two lines, and you can decrease the slope of one, your expenses, or you can increase the slope of the other, your income, or both. And so talk me through the logic. And it seems to me that you have been more focused on decreasing the slope of one.
Yeah, well, I was focused on both of them, but
okay.
Expenses are really within your within your grasp, like what's easy for you to do. But income will have a lot more of an impact. So, I mean, if you're only going to focus on one, it's probably focus on income. But expenses are an important part of it too. So when I went to law school, I found out how much first year lawyers make for the positions that I was interviewing for. And the starting salary at that point was $160,000. And I just remember thinking, if I make 4 times what the average person makes, can't I retire 4 times earlier?
I see.
So, the first year I spent paying off all my student loans, which is over $100,000. And then the next 4 years, I just spent accumulating enough to get it over my projected passive income above my expenses line.
Mm-hmm. And so let's talk through some of the ways. This is why everybody should know algebra. Right. Now, the difficult thing I've used the term on the podcast before, people's burn rate, essentially what are your expenses like? And one of the big challenges, so I could speak to this as a behavioral scientist, is that what people tend to do is they tend to increase their consumption commensurate with their income.
Yeah, absolutely. The golden handcuffs.
Yes. And so you make more money, you buy a nicer car. You make more money, you buy a bigger place. You make more money, you buy nicer clothes. You make more money, you go on fancier vacations, and so on. And so the difficult thing about this is because of what's called the hedonic treadmill, is that, yes, that nicer car, house, clothes, vacation does feel nicer at first, but unfortunately, as humans, we're really good at adapting to that new state of the world.
Yeah,
and so,
absolutely.
Yeah, hence the treadmill. You're all constantly moving forward, but not actually moving forward.
Right.
It's there. Okay, so my sense is you already had an intuition about that phenomenon early on.
Yeah, I just wanted more experiences than things. I've never been a shopper. I've never really been into accumulating things, but I've always wanted free time to read. And I wanted free time to hang out with my friends, so that was way more important to me than the latest clothes or the latest video games or whatever people spend money on.
Yes. Before we get into the expense side of the equation, there are these two sides of the income equation, right? So one is active income, so to speak, like billable hours as a lawyer. So this is right. Hence this must be very unappealing for you if you care about time, right? Because as a lawyer, you only get paid while you're working, and the more you work, the more you get paid.
Right.
Yes. The other one is passive income. Can you talk about that?
Like dividends, and, stock appreciation, that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, or any sort of business that
Real estate, right? Yeah, if you have a tenant or something.
Right. So you're making money while you sleep is the most passive of passive incomes, so to speak. And so for you, your passive income was investments, I'm assuming.
Right. Exactly.
Okay. And do you have a particular investment strategy that you find works well for you in terms of?
Yeah, so I'm very low maintenance. I don't want to buy something and then not think about it ever again, kind of thing. Okay. So my index fund of choice is VTSAX, Vanguard Total Stock Market Index Fund.
Okay.
Basically every stock that you can buy in the United States. And the United States has international subsidiaries, so I feel like it has a pretty good blend of international mix as well. And if I just say that I'm betting on civilization, as long as civilization continues, then my fund will probably continue to do well. I mean, if there's something seriously wrong with the stock market, then there's something seriously wrong with the rest of the world as well, probably. So,
yeah, I have that same fund. One of the benefits of that fund is that it's also low cost.
Right. There's no management fees or anything like that, which really chips away at your earning potential.
Yeah, and I don't think the average person understands why that's the case, but essentially because of opportunity costs. So if you pay high management fees, that's money that's not being invested, that's not going to compound.
Right.
And get this hockey stick action at the end of your life where you might need it most, which is to pay for a nursing home,
Right, absolutely.
Yeah. I have a slightly different one, and I would welcome you to talk me out of it. You're already you're already mildly doing so, and I'm already mildly doing so. So I have a hold the world philosophy.
Okay.
So I have two funds that I use mostly, which is the total stock market and then the total international stock market.
Okay. Yeah, I like that one too. I'm not going to be able to talk you out of it because I think that one's perfectly fine too. Is the expense ratio about the same? Is that what that one is? The TSAX?
I think it might be a tiny bit higher, but not.
I don't think there's anything wrong with having an international, portfolio as opposed to just a domestic one. Yeah. So I can't talk you out of that.
Okay. Well, and I keep them within GDP proportions.
Okay.
That's there. The issue with it is obviously they're correlated now because the world's economy is so correlated.
Right.
And then the other one is what's really fascinating, I think, is that now the world is investing in the United States stock market, which is, I believe, fueling much of the growth.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
That's there. Which, of course, though, then, that extra money then helps these businesses become better, and it works inefficiently, but it's their best way to go about doing it at this point. And so, and we've covered some of these in a prior episode called Financial Freedom with Money Amy. So I don't want to belabor this stuff where my financial planner and I kind of lay out the sort of steps to financial freedom, from paying off credit card debts all the way to, more complicated balancing of portfolios that the average person will never get to. I end up geeking out a little bit too much and annoying some people, but oh well.
I love talking about money. Compound interest. Amazing. Yeah.
So the other side of this thing is to lower expenses, to lower your burn rate. And so you already said you're not much of a shopper. You're not much of a material person to begin with.
Exactly. So that was always the easy part for me. I was always able to spend less than I earned. And, I mean, I think it'd be a struggle for me to spend all of my money to find ways to spend it all because there's just not that much that I want. It's like I buy everything I want. I just don't want that much.
And correct me if I'm wrong, you actually have a very thoughtful approach before you buy something.
Yes, I do. Well, this is a long time ago. I don't do this anymore, but I had a few questions that I would ask myself to kind of talk myself out of buying anything because I'm trying to find reasons not to. So I'd ask myself, if it's beautiful or useful, if it'll harm anyone in any way, if, the person who made it had terrible conditions, the working conditions, or they're a child or whatever, if it harms the environment in any way. And the answer to most of these questions for everything is going to be yes, because unfortunately the way capitalism is set up, the person making it is probably not in the happiest conditions, and consumption is destroying the earth. So it's pretty easy to talk yourself out of that when you're asking yourself these questions and really thinking about the implications of everything you buy.
Yes, I think that's outstanding. I think also just pausing. Look, I think Amazon is incredible. Talking about convenience, you were saying about going to the supermarket, you don't go after 2 p.m. I don't go to the supermarket anymore. Yeah. Because I have the great luxury of being able to order food and it gets delivered to my door. It's incredible.
Yeah, absolutely.
And once I started doing it, I was like, oh, I can't. I don't care. I
can't go back.
I can't go back. That's, between the parking and the shopping and the standing in line and, and the other people, frankly, who sometimes make it terrible. I know I never got any dates at the supermarket anyways, so it's not like it hurts my dating life in any sense.
Yeah, I've been hit on the supermarket for sure.
Well, yes, because you're lovely and I'm a ghoul, so. Also, nowadays, it's not even clear you're allowed to quote unquote hit on anyone out in public anyways, so.
Agreed.
It's just fraught. Hey, solo listeners. You know Julie Nervelli from her frequent appearances on the podcast. Well, her latest entrepreneurial venture, Bachelor Girl Productions, is now a sponsor. Bachelor Girl makes fun, flirty t-shirts that serve as an icebreaker when you are out and about. Let the world be your dating app with messages such as spoon size matters or all flirts welcome. You can also wear your Bachelor Girl t-shirt on an actual dating app picture. I recommend the message Swipe Right for that purpose. Just go to bachelorgirlproductions.com and use discount code SOLO for 20% off your order. That's SOLO in all caps at bachelorgirlproductions.com. Thank you, Julie, and thank you, Bachelor Girl. There's a whole bunch of other things that you just don't spend your money on. It sounds like you don't even have to ask those questions.
Right. I have a series that I talk about stuff that I never spend money on that most people do. So there's soda, I believe, is on there.
Yeah, soda. As you call it, pop. You must be from the Midwest.
The Midwest, exactly. From Chicago originally. So pop. Yes. That's funny. No, I don't spend money on coffee, which I know a lot of people do.
I do. Oh, my God. I spend, Anita. I want to push back on your coffee one. Can I?
Yeah, no, that's fine. Everyone has their own little advice, little treat.
Yes.
I was just naming a couple common ones that I do not personally have.
Yeah, I don't even call it a vice, actually. I call it a
necessity.
Yeah, or to me it's a tool. So I say, so to me, first of all, I spend it on coffee that is beautiful, that is delicious.
Yeah.
And enhances my life. And it is to me, I'm a big ritual person. And so it's part of a ritual. And so to me, it's a small price to pay. But yeah, I understand.
I get it.
Yeah. The general sentiment, I agree with it, is that like, you don't, to go to Starbucks or to go to one of these fancy pants hipster coffee shops and spend that money, you could either go without by getting a good night's sleep. You get a great night's sleep, and you don't need coffee.
For the reason is that I don't drink caffeine at all.
Yeah, you don't need it, and or you can come pretty damn close these days at a much lower price point at home.
Yeah,
if you wanted to. I mean,
exactly.
there are cheaper solutions that are out there, including, and if I may, if people have a cappuccino addiction, as I do to start the day, between a mocha pot, which you can get for $20 on Amazon, an Italian-style mocha pot, and then a milk frother, which you can get for maybe anywhere between $60 and $100, you can approximate. Actually, you can easily do something equivalent to a Starbucks cappuccino without even blinking. You can't quite get to the hipster level, but it's still quite delicious and nice. You're on the flat part of the curve, anyways. Okay, so I didn't mean to interrupt, but what are some of the other things I have them all on my list here. So if you don't forget, if you don't remember them, I have them. What are some of the others that you?
Table, I think, is one of them.
Table was one of them. Yes, indeed.
Clothes might have been on there because most of my clothes are hand-me-downs from my sister.
I don't have that one written down, but you do have a series about clothes. Yeah. So.
I don't remember what else is on that list. Do I wrote it a lot?
Well, the big one, and which I want to get into. I'll list off a few. You have cigarettes, which of course is like one of the worst things that you can spend money on. I would probably add alcohol to that list. You're not much of a drinker.
I used to be when I wrote that list. That's why I didn't include alcohol. But now I don't drink.
You don't drink at all?
I drink like 4 or 5 times a year, maybe.
Yeah. So I say I'm going to do an episode on alcohol. I think it's an incredible problem, and if you're single and dating, it's exacerbated.
So hard to date when you're not drinking.
It's really very difficult. You had cars.
Oh yeah.
Those are depreciating assets, of course. Lottery tickets. You have manicures on here.
Okay, yeah.
So the irony is I got a manicure pedicure today. And it was crazy expensive. It was so expensive that I was like, I kind of regretted it. I didn't check the price before I went in, and I just went to a place that ended up being too much money.
How much was it? Just out of curiosity.
It was $47.
Oh, that's not bad for manicure and a pedicure. I mean,
do you think that's an okay price? Okay, I don't get them that often. I probably get them quarterly, I would say.
Okay.
Yes. So why did manicures make the list?
Oh, it's one of those things I know that people spend a lot of money on that is not a necessity.
Yeah. And you can do it yourself, I've heard.
Yeah, I believe so. I mean, probably not as well as the salon, but I mean, that's not my area. I don't know.
Okay. All right.
I just cut my nails with a nail cutter and go on with my life.
All right. Well, the gentlemen listening, I think some of you guys should go get a manicure.
Yeah, I've heard I've had them before. They're super fun, so I understand why people get them, but they add up for sure.
Indeed. Yes, that's right. Yeah, that's true. I think that's what you mean. Again, this is about rare and special versus the regular.
Common and everyday, yeah.
I don't know if I already said this. You said lottery tickets, but the big one is, and you have a whole post on it. You have diamond engagement rings.
Yeah.
So, so my community are not, we're not anti-marriage. So some people listening may have been married. Some people may get married someday. I even have some married listeners. I call it solo porn, who get to hear this stuff. Some of them are friends and want to be able to support singles better. So they like to listen to this. But let's make the case against the diamond ring. Like, assume a marriage will happen. Although, as quickly as an aside, the diamond industry at one point was trying to create a right-hand ring for independent women to buy themselves a diamond ring. I don't think it ever caught on.
Yeah, I'm glad.
But let's talk about someone who's getting engaged. Maybe the receiver of the ring, maybe the giver of the ring, maybe getting it together in a more progressive, unconventional relationship. Why not diamond engagement rings? They're beautiful.
They are beautiful, but it's just basically a marketing ploy. You can get, a fake diamond, quote unquote, that's lab made. It looks exactly like the real thing and is exactly like the real thing.
It's chemically identical.
Cheaper. Exactly.
Yeah.
For much cheaper. And, what I was saying earlier about what are the conditions of the person who made this thing, the mines that, where they mine the diamonds, the conditions are terrible for people.
Oh my God. These diamond mines they're atrocious.
And it's just, like I said, it's a marketing ploy. The De Beers company came up with this idea of like, oh, diamond is forever. It'll be the symbol of marriage. And they were wildly successful. Because that's what everyone now associates with it. But it's a relatively new phenomenon.
Yeah, there's a case study, if you're a marketing professor, about De Beers and the marketing that they did, which was frankly diabolical.
Yeah. Are you a marketing professor?
I am. I'm a psychologist by training, a behavioral economist, but I teach marketing, consumer behavior, and a marketing management course to MBAs. I don't teach that case, not in a long time, but one of the things that they did was they put diamonds in movies. And they made it part. They basically invented a tradition.
Yeah.
Which is really striking. There's a number of traditions that are just invented by people who want to make money associated with marriages.
Absolutely.
And the diamond one is the biggest one and the most lucrative. For example, do you know who came up with the 2-month salary rule?
I believe that was also De Beers. Yeah.
Yes. So the people selling the diamonds set the rule, which is, I think it's 2 months salary, maybe 3 months. I can't remember
crazy.
What it is.
Some ridiculous amount. Yeah.
It's obscene. Yes, it's absolutely obscene. As I said, it's diabolical. As an aside, I have a good friend and his then girlfriend, now wife, were planning their wedding, and neither of them were really into cake. And so one of the things, they were talking to the person helping them, with their wedding. They had a really lovely wedding actually in Cincinnati, Ohio at one of the museums there. It was great. And they said, what? They did some research. They're research. Both of them are researchers. And so they did some research into wedding cakes. There's no tradition, just made up. There, it doesn't go back to anything.
Yeah.
There. So they had ice cream instead, and so I give them a lot of credit for that.
Yeah. Go against the grain. I like it.
Indeed. Yes. I mean that, frankly, these are the kinds of people who, I think I get along best with, like the people who don't naturally question, well, why are we doing this? At the very least, even if they're doing it, to ask why and to consider how they might do it differently. I think. Yeah,
absolutely.
So any other thoughts about this process of not buying things or buying used rather than new? delaying purchases, other stuff in kind of your expertise and your experience that would be useful for a listener to consider? The person who's trying to cross those curves.
Yeah, I mean, take it one step at a time. You know what I mean? Like, build in a little bit of treat too, so you don't go insane. So if you are a coffee person, maybe don't give up coffee if that's your one treat in life, your joy in life. You got to make it sustainable. So it's going to be depending on how long how much money you make and how much you spend. You're going to be in it for the long haul.
Yes. So the other thing is, and this is related to the hedonic treadmill, is we are also good at adapting to negative things.
Yeah. Which
right.
Is
so
bad, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's just slower, right? We're really good at adapting to positive things. We're less good at negative things, but we are good at it. And so just know that when you strip these things away, that you can, that you will get used to your new state of the world that's there. Although I think oftentimes the argument is not to add, right? So if you maintain what you're doing is probably the first step, right? Rather than continuing to add.
Agreed.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk a little bit about tidying up and minimalism.
Yeah.
Because this goes hand in hand with this removing material purchases. I get the sense from reading your work, you love KonMari.
She's amazing. Yeah,
you have a crush.
The magic of tidying up is aptly named.
Yes, you have a crush on KonMari, as I do too. So talk about your sort of minimalist ways and your tidying up ways. I mean, it sounds like you don't already have a lot of stuff to begin with, but you.
So I do the KonMari method every year, just going through every single one of my possessions, category by category, and deciding if it brings me joy, it's going to stay or it's going to leave. Mm-hmm. And it only takes me a couple of days because I don't have that much stuff.
Right.
So it just, what you were saying about maintaining. So, as long as you don't keep buying things, you don't have to keep getting rid of them.
Mm-hmm. So for those of you who don't know the KonMari methodology, is you have these different categories. So clothing is one category. Books, I think, are a special category.
Papers are another category.
Papers, kitchen stuff. There's a few of these things, I think.
Categories too, so you can go through and be pretty granular.
And the idea is you take these things out of their home and you throw them in a pile, more or less.
Yeah, exactly. And then you touch it and you decide if it brings you joy or not.
And if it doesn't,
then you donate it or get rid of it somehow.
Yeah, you give it away, you sell it, or you throw it out. And here's one of the things that I think is really lovely about this. And that, first of all, that's very hard for people to do because it enacts what's called loss aversion. So you're right. And the oftentimes for the average person, the loss of giving it up looms larger than the extra space or the psychic energy that's been freed and so on. But you thank it for its service.
I love that too.
Yeah, I think that's just so
Feels
lovely.
Very respectful.
It is. It's respectful. Like you were, T-shirt. We had a good time.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I've heard, like sort of these closet organizers talk about, is people go, "Oh, I'm going to miss it," and everything. They say, "Well, you can take a picture of it."
Yeah.
And you can remember it. Now it's with you forever. Uploaded to the digital cloud.
And then you'll more than likely just forget about it.
Yeah. My own personal experience with this was, so I'm living in California at the time. I have a home in Boulder, Colorado. I'll be honest, it's more home than I need. I lived in that home for 10 years before moving out of it. And if you live in a place for 10 years, even when you're a tidy guy like me, you accumulate stuff.
Yeah.
And it took a lot for me to go through the house and kind of create sort of my 3 bins. What goes with me to California? What goes to Goodwill or the trash? And then what stays behind for my tenant or for when I return? And I was just thinking about this the other day, Anita, and I think you'll get a kick out of it. There's a whole bunch of shit at that house. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that still is there. I don't miss any of it.
Yeah. You don't think about any of it after you don't see it. It's not a part of your life.
There's one thing I wish I had, and it's a hat I left behind.
Okay.
Right? It's a fedora. It's like a winter style fedora, like felt or not. I think it's felt
Okay.
or velvet, or it can't be velvet, whatever it is, but it's like a wool. It's wool. And I wish I brought it with me. Otherwise, there's nothing else I go, oh my God, I can't believe I didn't bring that.
Yeah, I mean, you really get to know what's important to you and what's vital and what's not.
Mm-hmm. It's really empowering. It gets me to a point where I'm moving to a place where I don't want to own anything.
Yeah.
I just don't want to own anything.
Stuff you own end up owning you,
Yeah, besides those 2 mutual funds. I want to own much, much more of that.
Yeah. Collins likes to say he's a proponent of VTSAX. He's another financial blogger. Always likes to say he spends every dime he gets, but he spends it on VTSAX. Yeah,
so I'm glad you brought up I'm glad you brought him up because I have bonus material.
Okay.
That I have a Slack channel for the solo community. Anybody can sign up for it at petermcgraw.org. And occasionally I'll have some bonus material that I'll put on the Slack channel. I'm going to there's a scene from this movie called The Gambler by Mark Wahlberg, in which, oh my goodness, I can't remember his name. He was on Roseanne.
John Goodman?
John Goodman and I almost said Mark Wahlberg. Have a thing where the John Goodman character talks about the position of FU and having FU money. And then what's his name? Jim
Collins. Jim Collins.
Yes. He recreates that scene with his own perspective. And so for the bonus material, I'm going to have both of those scenes for my community.
Great.
Yes, it's really great. And he talks about VTS. What is it? VTS? SAX, yes, which is the total stock market. Vanguard's total stock market.
Correct, yeah.
It could be any of the big funds. They're all more or less the same.
Right.
Okay, so anything else about minimalism, the act of tidying up, the focus on experiences versus material things that feed into the freedom that we're talking about?
This is a solo podcast, so about living alone.
Mm-hmm.
I just wonder if it's easier to merge if you do find somebody, if you're a minimalist, if you have, not that much stuff, and if you're clean, it's a lot easier to date, I would assume.
Well, yeah, I mean, certainly. I mean, it certainly makes you a more appealing person to date because they're just like, oh, my stuff will go over there. And I'm like, hey, you need to slow down a little bit. We're not
for you. Yeah, exactly.
We're not adding a lot of throw pillows to this bed. Okay. Yeah. I do think that there is something about, and I haven't investigated yet, but there is something about this sort of minimalist approach which may make it difficult to merge.
Oh, really? Okay.
You're just like, well, I kind of like it a little tidy here.
Yeah. That's funny. I never thought about that way.
So let's finish up talking about something that you... Actually, I have a couple things I want to finish up with, but something that I don't do. There's a couple things I don't do as an act of defiance to my former impoverished self.
Okay.
So I grew up. I grew up food stamps poor, not welfare poor. And so, just to give people some context, so Money Amy, who's famous on the podcast now, she always wants me, whenever I'm making a big decision, she essentially asks me my monthly burn rate. What do you spend? And I go, I don't know. And I'm not going to tell you because I'm not going to calculate it because I spent 35 years of my life calculating it more or less. And I just don't want to live like that anymore. But the other one is about asking for a discount, and I can appreciate this one. I'm not good at it. And it goes against, there's some, I think, cultural norms it bumps up against for me in particular. But you encourage your readers to ask for a discount.
Yeah, I do remember that post. That was a long time ago.
Yeah,
I totally get why you wouldn't want to do that. Like sitting on the phone waiting to talk to customer service isn't fun. Mm-hmm. But honestly, it can really make a difference in terms of monthly bills. Like,
who should you be asking a discount from?
Like your monthly bills. So let's say like cable bill, I guess they have these yearly promotions, as soon as the year is done, and they put you into a higher tier automatically. Like if you call and you talk to them about it, 9 times out of 10, they will reduce your bill. It takes a little bit of time, takes a little bit of patience, a little bit of niceness, but it's not too bad.
Yeah, and so you give very clear advice about this. So one is you say be nice. And I think that, yeah, of course. Like what's the saying is you
catch more flies with honey, right?
Yes,
than vinegar.
Right. Yeah. Also, the thing is I go out of my way to be nice to these customer service. It's a tough job.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't think the people understand how tough a job it is nowadays. There's so much observation. They're being tracked. They're being recorded. And I think it's, I think that it can, and just one of the things I always do is I just say, hey, where do you live? And then if I've been to the place, I comment on it and, make a little small talk and so on. And I've definitely had some, oh my God, I had someone get me on a flight and get the last business class ticket, in a desperate situation, just because we just struck up a nice conversation, with a United,
And people are human beings, connect with them on a human level.
Indeed. And they have some discretion.
Right.
I think. Yeah. But what else? What are some of the other ones? So you say be friendly and patient. Yeah. Tell them to take their time.
I mean, if you're coming from a position of strength, if you don't need it, you could threaten to cancel it, like especially cable. I hate cable. Just cancel it.
Yeah. Another one that you said, which I like, and I've done before, especially with airlines. This is just customer service issues in general. It's like, you don't get what you want, hang up.
Yeah, try again.
And try again. You might just get a different person.
Exactly. That does work a lot of the time, a shocking number of times.
Yeah, you just hang up. You just roll the dice again.
Yeah, exactly.
Kind of thing. Yeah. Any other thoughts about that idea of asking for a discount? There's it's striking the stories about asking for discounts in places that don't advertise discounts.
Yeah. Like I remember I was going with my sister once, and we went to Macy's, and she was asking the lady behind the counter, "Do you have any coupons?" And the lady gave her a coupon. I was amazed. But then my sister was like, "Do you have any other coupons?" And she gave her another coupon. I don't know. My mouth must have been on the floor because I was like, the gall to ask for a different coupon, but it
worked. Wow. So is there something in your family, Anita?
Yeah, I think so. I think the Indian blood. It's very.
I see.
Brutal.
I have heard this. I don't want to act stereotypically, but I've been to India and I know there's a lot of negotiating going on.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I've heard specific cultural stories about Indians and negotiating outside of India, including one of the places I've been surprised by is Best Buy.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So that, it's like, okay, especially this idea of like, you're talking to the associate, you're working it through and so on. And then, comes the time you just go, will you do it for $500?
I can't imagine doing it at Best Buy.
But people do it,
yeah.
People do it. I think that's right. Okay. Last thing is you have some habits that make your life better. And anybody who listens to this podcast knows how much I love a good habit.
Yeah. I have something called a resolutions chart where every single month I just pick 10 to 15 new resolutions. And then every day I go through my chart. And if I did the resolution, I give myself a smiley face. If I didn't do the resolution, I give myself a number. So the first time I didn't do it, it's a 1. The 10th time I didn't do it, it's a 10. Ooh. And at the end of the month, I grade myself. So if it's 90% of the days, I get an A, 80% of the days, I get a B, 70% C, etc.
And Anita gets A's. She went to the University of Chicago.
They're my motivation. So I work out, meditate, and then 12 to 13 other resolutions every month.
Yeah, you read books? You're a big book reader?
Love to read, yeah.
You better be. You wrote a book, so I think...
Working on number 2 right now.
Is there a book right now you're reading?
Yeah, I'm reading 3 books right now, actually. I'd like to read more than one, just so I'm always in the mood for something. So one is hiking the Grand Canyon, because it's on my life bucket list, and I want to do that backpack through it next year, hopefully.
Wonderful.
Tiny Habits, just another habits book.
Okay. Your habits about habits.
Exactly. The other one is Running with Sherman. It's about, have you ever read the book Born to Run? It's by the same author as that, Christopher McDougall. It's about a donkey that he finds and makes it to a heart of a champion, I guess.
That's lovely. The last one I'm going to point out for you is you take long, sumptuous walks in the sunshine.
Yes, vitamin D, it's a real thing.
It is true, and you live in Denver, so you have lots of sun there, which is nice.
That's the reason I picked Denver, honestly, is sunshine.
Yeah, it's one of the sunniest places in the world that's there. This has been really wonderful. Anita, thank you for not ignoring my emails. You're giving a great gift with this blog, your book, and your time here. And I'll have one last question before I finish my thanks, and that is, I can imagine someone going, I can't imagine retiring at 35. I'd be afraid I'm going to get bored.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the hardest part of it, honestly, is figuring out what you want to do with your time and going for it. Me personally, I like to write and read, so I spend a fair number of hours doing that. So I consider that my quote-unquote job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I mean, some people it's making music, some people it's building stuff. You just got to figure out what it is that makes you happy and go do it. That's the hardest part.
Yeah, I think it's lazy to think that you need work to fill the hours. There are plenty of other ways.
I'm never bored. I feel like there's so many things to do. Like I'm taking a woodworking class next week. I tried archery last week. Like there's so many things in the world to try.
Yes. Well, Anita, you now qualify for one of my remarkable rebellious singles. And so I want to say, again, thank you for your time and for just contributing these ideas to the world. They're really important.
My pleasure.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you for listening to Solo, the single person's guide to a remarkable life. For more about our guests and show notes, go to petermcgraw.org. Please subscribe and share with your single friends.